Canada has been left out of the America and Mexico Nafta talks. But what is the story with the loonie, US dollar, and Mexican peso? Joining me today to discuss this is Jose Ricarte Hayen. America and Mexico are close to reaching a free trade agreement. But why has Canada been left out of these talks, and could the deal fall through because of this?
Hey Caius, thanks for the invite. As usual, it's a pleasure to discuss with you and your audience a little bit of what's happening in the landscape of economics. We have a lot of back and forth between NAFTA. You also have Brexit on the other side of the globe, trade wars, China versus the U.S. There's so much going on right now. And I think like the case of NAFTA is very interesting. A lot of the audience, and I go over this over and over again, and for this purpose, I'm sharing this article in International Policy Digest, a little bit old, but I think the audience will find lots of value in every word that we have here. And it was written by our colleague, journalist Elise Bergen. And why NAFTA matters. And I think I'm just going to focus on the second paragraph, at least just to give a perspective that when we discuss NAFTA, there's a lot of these perspective and misconception of what's exactly happening. And let's be on the same page that not on every deal the U.S. is getting ripped off. It's not true. Because we need to understand that there's also a lot of juice that the U.S. is getting out of this whole deal, to be clear. Now, besides that, there's a perspective on the so-called handshake deal between Mexico and the U.S. and how there's a position that for that handshake deal to happen, the three countries must be on the same page, must be on the same chamber, if you want to put that in perspective. But that's also something to consider. Now, why this happening? What we have. So to go over your question, I think like the number one thing that we need to understand is that to something to happen at the end of the day, we need to understand what is the agenda as far as what exactly the Trump administration wants. And sometimes it's a correlation between, let's call it disconnected reality between what they want and what they actually tend to do at the end of the day. So they're looking for have a America first narrative. And sometimes it's very aggressive how they want to achieve this, but at the same time, what they're actually developing, it's a strong dollar, which doesn't help all the time. So that's something to consider. And the second thing we have to keep in mind is the state of the economies in the members of the NAFTA. You have a Canadian economy doing all right, doing very well, if you want to put that in perspective. And then you have a new president in Mexico, something also to pay attention how it develops in the next 90 days, during the first 2 years, and what kind of balance this new character can bring into the equation with someone that is very aggressive and sometimes you even can say bipolar at the end of the day, how he expresses messages about his economy. We're talking about Trump, but not everything that Trump is doing is completely wrong. I mean, we need to understand when to attack and when not to attack him in based on what he's looking for. Now, something to consider as well, if we look at the charts, I'm just going to go in perspective and share technical aspects of both currencies, the dollar versus the Canadian dollar, and also the dollar versus the Mexican peso. So we look at these levels first, and what you can see that there is some sort of recovery story here, and we're looking to what to expect in the next 4 to 8 weeks on both currencies. Now, one of the reasons why you see this situation and the push only to discuss with Mexico is because there's this advantage that they find in a dialogue with the new president and how to soft, as I mentioned before, the narrative with Mexico. That's not really the situation with with Canada. And just to keep in mind, also, if you put apples versus apples, there's something that we're missing sometimes, that you have a little bit of the oil dilemma with Canada. And we always have to keep in mind the loss of jobs. And the audience may correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you have also a lot of the automobile industry moving from Canada to Mexico. So there's this battle of industries among these players and how to position themselves. And choosing from the worst pain, I think the U.S. is just deciding to settle with Mexico, not with Canada. Also, that has something to do with the lack. I'm just going to put it back for a moment. Peña Nieto is no longer in the equation, but you have to see that Justin Trudeau's not exactly one of those leaders that you will say is one of the smartest guys in the room. Very weak policy, very weak hand right now, and with all the craziness that Trump may have or not, he's actually playing the game very, very well in this occasion. So that's something to consider. Now, going back to the levels, I'm going to just share with the audience for trading opportunities. We're looking at very interesting pivot point levels. Now, recently we just have a drop in the US dollar, very tiny correction in dollar index. So we're looking to buy all the way, probably considering the 129.60, 129.50, the pivot point on the support level number 2 as our critical area to buy as much as possible on the side of the US dollars. And we're looking at possible playouts, always looking into Fibonacci. And we're going to take this Fibonacci, reverse, and take it all the way here. And you can see here we have the 61.8% of Fibonacci, the 2990 be protected by long dollars. And the final projection, if we take it from this section, I'm going to just press it here, the entire level. And from this level rejected, we can look for a US dollar versus Canadian dollar in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We'll bet to be somewhere around 136. And finally, we're looking into the dollar versus the Mexican peso. So you look at these levels and pretty much we have another recovery. Now, this position and the so-called handshake deal, Mexican peso has a better stand against the dollar versus what the Canadian dollar can do. But we also look for a recovery story all the way back to 1916 in the next 4 weeks.
Well, a big thank you at home for clicking back, and a big thank you to Jose for providing us with his charts and articles. Goodbye for now.